Earlier today, a federal judge blocked the Trump administration from enforcing a threat to take away funds from sanctuary cities. This is the latest blow from the federal judiciary to President Trump's immigration agenda. President Trump told reporters that he's furious about all the interference in his agenda, particularly by judicial and legislative officials who are infringing upon our country's proud tradition of one branch of government. The Trump Report starts now.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AFTERBUZZ TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
Oh, that's right. We're going to look at some vacation slides today. Welcome to the Trump Report. I'm Christian Bladt at Christian DMZ. And our vacation girl to my left, camera right, Chelsea Galicia, at Chelsea Galicia. Is that sexist to refer to you as a girl? Because I was thinking of the Go-Go's, and
Call
they're
me
like
not easily offended. I don't care. No, I'm not.
All right, because I mean you're obviously a proud woman, and I just didn't want to, And
I'm a lady, goddammit.
And the lady at the end of the desk, our friend Scott Moore at S-Man80. I don't know if I said at Chelsea Galicia, but if I did, that's 2 plugs for the price of 1. And of course, our show is on Twitter at Trump Report ABTV. Our next follower will be our 100th. So I said I wanted to get to triple digits. We're so close. Someone during the show, please follow us. But if you're watching live on YouTube, join us in the chat, and we'll take a look at that and bring you into the conversation. There's a lot to talk about, especially as we near the 100-day marker, the first 100 days of President Trump. But I told our friend Chelsea that we were going to let her share her vacation slides and tell us about a very exciting trip that you took to Washington, D.C.
Some people head to the heat, to the beach, the sand between their toes. No, if I'm gonna leave the show, I'm only gonna leave it to go to D.C.
Yeah, our friend Brooke, who was here a couple weeks ago, she was in Cabo this past week, but you went away to sunny Washington, D.C.
Right. More like it was raining.
Oh,
but,
sure.
Yep, I appreciate it. So it was really cool that almost a year to the day ago from that trip, I went to D.C. for the first time in my life in order to get myself arrested as part of this big sit-in. And this time, I went with a group who had more connections to the inside. And so we got to meet with some of my political heroes. And
Sean Spicer, Kellyanne Conway, and Steve Bannon. Unfortunately, those pictures are not featured, but we'll just have to let you tell those stories another time.
Another day.
Let's hear about some of the lefty hacks you got to meet.
Oh, somebody that I absolutely adore is Jane Sanders. I had never really heard her speak before. I mean, obviously I'm a Bernie girl, but I had heard from people that she is fabulous and adorable, and we met with her in her capacity as head of the Sanders Institute, which
and
is
obviously
launching soon.
Bernie Sanders' wife. Just I know you said you were a Bernie girl. I'm just making it clear. And for those watching on YouTube, we're going to have some photos that accompany this.
So it was a little bit weird to meet my boyfriend's wife, but
it happens though.
Yeah,
You're not the first woman to meet the boyfriend's wife.
We were holding hands, and
the joy in your eyes.
Yeah,
and
it was awesome, and she was really great. Like, I love her, like, not just because of her relationship to Bernie, but she herself is a really smart and really wants to hear everybody at the table what they say and really listens, and she is just awesome, smart, and ideas. I loved talking to her. Hopefully we can be girlfriends soon.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, not like
no. I knew what you meant, but you know what? People in the chat probably, as soon as you said that,
I know. So that's why I had to clarify.
Yeah.
But it would be just Jane and I are texting or something. That would be kind of amazing.
Look, you guys are this close to being besties.
Right.
I feel it.
Yeah,
You're gonna have the heart necklace that snaps in half that says best friends. Half of it says be free and the other says. So
what? I didn't get
best
that.
friends. Breaks in half.
Got it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. But she really is fabulous. Love her. Who else we got here?
Yeah, let's
in
see.
My vacation
So we'll
lineup?
scroll through the.
Yes.
Hey, look at Stuart Smalley. I saw him in a movie called Stuart Saves His Family.
Yeah. So Senator Al Franken.
And for SNL fans, I'll throw in the reference. That's me. Al Franken. There you go. That's for SNL. Long-time SNL fans.
And can I just tell you, my big takeaway from Al Franken is he has some massively huge hands.
Really?
Really.
You know what they say about guys with big hands?
They're not Donald Trump.
Big gloves.
Yeah.
And what you said.
Yeah. And maybe because of his whole SNL connection, I was expecting him to be kind of goofy or something.
And funny.
Not so much.
The whole time he's been a senator, he's very buttoned down, and I think
He's gotten the serious thing down.
He goes the extra mile, and you're like, is this the guy who wrote the book Rush Limbaugh is a Big Fat Idiot? And I mean, he is, but he doesn't act like that guy.
No, not at all. Still cool to meet with him.
He's proudly representing the people of Minnesota, the land of 10,000 lakes.
Yeah, and just.
Can't really say about what you guys talked about, but let's just say
No.
they're developing a film. We're going to bring back Stuart Smalley. He might go into space, but I feel like I've said too much. So let's move on to the next photo, Neil.
Here, look at this. Me and my new friend
Woo.
Nancy.
Nance. Do you call her Nance because you guys are so close?
Getting there. I mean, look at, we are practically wearing the same dress.
Yeah.
I feel like that picture might be zoomed in a little bit.
Just slightly.
Yeah, just slightly.
But it's because...
It's zoomed in like the Zapruder film is zoomed in.
Yeah, I mean, I was only in D.C. for a couple of days and jam-packed with all these meetings of meeting people. And people that know me know that I really like to eat. But we skipped lunch in order to meet with Nancy.
I would be,
Yeah,
but then again, you're meeting Nancy.
I mean,
so.
to get to meet some of the movers and shakers, the high-level elected officials, would be very important. I would have skipped somebody to get to lunch, though.
Oh,
That's just
no.
me.
I know.
I
Well, I
didn't.
just would want an energy bar if
and-
I'm meeting them. I just
and
want to be. I want to be extra
Gatorade
kale.
and an energy
I know. I
bar,
want to make
yeah.
sure that I would have the energy to.
And I
discuss.
found her to be really warm, but also like very intense. And that's a really cool.
The warmth doesn't come across on TV, but the intense definitely.
Yeah,
does.
but I think it's very cool that she, at least in my presence, really walked that line finally, being open, friendly, receptive, and intense at the same time. Yeah.
Well, that's
I was a
great.
fan.
And
Moving right
former
along.
Speaker Nancy Pelosi. And then who do we got here?
The senator from Massachusetts, Elizabeth Warren. So our group went in to meet with her staff. Some of our people in our group knew her staff.
And I
people.
remember before you went, you said you were not going to get the opportunity to meet with her,
Right.
and you were a little disappointed, but still
I
glad
was
to. Yeah.
absolutely disappointed.
All right. Well, I
And
was
we
soft
had
selling it.
no heads up at all that she was even in the building, because this was the day that Neil Gorsuch was confirmed, right? So this was that Thursday, and thought, okay, after that fiasco, she's probably heading, home, and she's gonna do campaign stuff or whatever. No heads up at all that she was even around, and then all of a sudden she comes through that door, and all of us just kind of did that like thing. And she was just, first of all, she is really stunningly beautiful. I'm
Really?
not sure if that comes across. Probably not in the, but she's just like her skin and her face is just like bright. Like there's a halo coming from the inside out. Like,
wow.
This woman is legit. And it was really cool that I got to tell her that I run a nonprofit dedicated to financial literacy, and how I was about.
That's all right. You can.
What is
I'm
this?
always having the problem where when I get the audio of the show while I look for the chat. You can continue.
Gotcha. And got to tell her about, I teach people to look out for how the big banks treat them, and this is why I'm not so gung-ho on soliciting big banks' money, is because of what I learned from her, and I admire her work. So that was kind of cool to be able to have that moment. So yeah, that was definitely a highlight.
And another one of your best friends.
And yeah. And this is selfie time with Cory Booker, who is every bit as charming as
Did you say future president Cory Booker? Did I hear that somewhere under your breath? I wasn't sure if I heard
That's
that.
such a cute picture too.
And he really is.
That's like the picture
just-
from the Oscars when Ellen
Yeah,
hosted.
that's such a
Yeah.
great picture of everyone.
Yeah, this was his idea to do a selfie. Most everybody else wanted to do, the regular, boring kind of, But he's like, hey, let's do a selfie. He definitely has a selfie arm. It's very long, and obviously got a lot of us in there. But he is just very friendly. I mean, he has got this like charming politician thing down. He comes across like that. Like that's how he would be just looking at him, and sort of meeting him with a group sort of behind closed doors, but still, he was just the same friendly, open, warm guy who really cares. He went around, wanted to know everybody's name, and had a story or a song or something like, do you know that? He's just very personable and just really got into talking about some issues with us, and fabulous. Loved him.
And finally, I believe this is the last one. This one, how large did you get this picture blown up, and what color is the frame that you have for this photo?
I haven't selected it yet. But this was
Did
very
you go
cool.
8.5 by 11?
I mean, it's going to be like my wallpaper.
Did you cut Jane out of the picture
No.
when you printed out? I know she's your BFF, but
No.
Bernie.
So this was cool. I got to see Jane 2 days in a row.
Wow.
So first
So
day
you're
with
like really good friends
with
now.
the senator,
You know, there's
and the second day with
a
him.
lot of these guys in Washington never see their wives 2 days in a row. So good for you.
But they seem really like a team. Like they
Like
were
the
both-
Clintons?
Why would you? Why would you
They're a
mess
team.
up this beautiful moment
All
that
right.
I'm here by
Like
bringing
the
them?
Obamas.
Sure, but I don't know if Michelle was that. I mean, like
Okay, so like
this
George
was-
W. and Laura Bush.
I know less about them.
Like Ron and
Anyways.
Nancy. Anyway, go ahead.
Anyways, these are
Like Donald and Melania. Come on.
really adorable. I mean, there's just you guys are ruining my moment.
Sorry.
Sharing.
We're
with
just jealous.
I'm
Yeah,
jealous.
everybody.
Exactly. I'm so jealous
Yeah.
that I'm trying.
Although
to...
I'm not jealous that you missed lunch that day, because I definitely
No.
had lunch that day. So
Okay, then you win.
I'm a big lunch
Oh,
fan.
believe me,
I'm a big lunch fan.
I think we definitely won.
But Bernie was, some people are like, oh, he's kind of grumpy old man.
Now,
But
had you
actually,
seen him speak in public, I assume, at an event or something, or had you only seen him on television?
I had seen him speak publicly 2 years ago
Okay.
at that event where I got my first Bernie picture.
Right.
was a
So
political
compare
conference.
that with, just sitting down and talk to him. I mean, obviously he's someone who inspires people when he speaks, and it's got to be different to have the personal one-on-one with him, right?
He was kind of the same, but he was the same intensity about the issues and stuff. But the way he sat, I mean, he sat at the table like, if I can, just like a really like laid back, like, okay, like let's talk and hang like
The way
buddies.
everybody sits in Vermont is the way I guess.
Maybe he's that, but it was just like, oh, he's not this like stick up your whatever kind of grumpy kind of thing that I think a lot of people make him out to be. And so it just made him more endearing to me, and just loved talking to him and Jane, and we're one big happy family.
You're going to
Look
keep
at
in
that.
touch. You guys are, probably going to get together on the Cape over the summer.
Well, I mean, Bernie's coming to town pretty soon, so maybe, just
You're
maybe.
like you're gonna have lunch this time though. He's
If-
gonna
if-
come to town. You guys will have lunch
Ooh,
together.
That's a good idea.
If I was at all
that would be really
motivated-
progressing our friendship.
It would be to
forward.
the next
Yeah.
level.
If I was at all motivated, I would do a parody of Santa Claus is Coming to Town with Bernie is Coming to Town. But I'm just going to admit right now I won't. By the way, Storage Yard Resident wants to know, Chelsea, where's your picture with Trump?
So
That's for the next. What's the one with Steve Bannon and
Ooh,
Sean
right after the
Spicer
Steve Bannon one.
and all
Yeah,
that.
that's the problem was the cloud was full, so you couldn't take any more pictures.
Right.
That's what I think you ran into. There were a few different interesting comments in the chat. I always get Regla Vicor's name wrong, and that person is kind enough to also watch my Mystery Science Theater 3000 show, so I should really learn how to say your name. Points out Mr. Wall Street, Cory Booker. Do you feel like that's an accurate characterization? Because we know Wall Street is not really something that you're particularly cozy with.
This is true, and boy, did it take every fiber of my being to not say, what the hell was up with that
The
prescription
pharmaceutical, back in January. That
vote?
Was,
Yeah, and I somehow didn't have the gall to go there.
Look, it's very different when you meet somebody. I mean,
I was trying to not get thrown out.
yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I that is a very fair point, and it is a fair, I think, criticism that I have of Senator Booker.
But it's also, I don't feel like that was the time or the place to say
No.
something like that.
We were not
he was,
going
he was
there
making time in his schedule.
to lobby.
Yeah.
We were not going there to give anybody a hard time. We wanted to really get a sense of how does it feel in Congress and in the Senate for real. Like without the media hype, because right, Trump says things are fine around here. It's the media who's hyping it up to be some big terrible thing. And no, these people really all individually expressed grave concern about what was going on. I mean, this was the day the Neil Gorsuch was being confirmed, so the nuclear option. This was there was the Syrian strikes. I mean,
There was a lot happening, but they made time to talk
Yeah.
to you and help you raise funding for Stuart Smalley in Space, which I'm looking forward to. I was a big fan of the original movie, and you know, it's about time that Al got back into acting. Cheryl Texas, by the way, says that, you know, I said, hey, the people in the chat are going to really jump on the fact that you said that Jane is your girlfriend, and he's like, hey, we're better than that. So
Thank
Cheryl
you.
Texas, you might be better than that.
Yeah.
And he also says that he envies Bernie for getting to be in the picture with you and Jane. So you
Aw,
see,
that's
he's a
sweet.
little sweet talker.
Yes.
Anyway, so thank
Thanks
you for
letting
sharing.
me
No,
share
I
my
wanted to
vacation
get you to
pictures.
share it, and
I
I
was
just
very jealous, and once I heard all the people that you got a chance to meet, I mean, that's amazing. In such a short period of time that you got to have that kind of accessibility. It's
Yeah.
pretty
I wanted
incredible.
to save it for this week because I felt like it would have done a disservice to your story and a disservice to our guests from based in LA to have it last week.
true.
And those are all probably the
And
top
I
of the list of
probably-
people that they're not particularly fans of. So
I probably would
would have just blown through it like, here I am with Bernie. Oh, look, there I am without Franken. Okay, I'm done.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, thank you for sharing. I wanted to give that opportunity. And
Very exciting.
I will
Very exciting.
I will tweet out some of those pictures from at Trump Report ABTV just as soon as we have 100 followers.
Are we there yet?
And Cheryl Texas also said, hey, can I follow twice? No, you cannot. So if you unfollow and refollow, it's going to keep the count at 99. In any case, we're going to talk about the first 100 days of Trump in a little bit, but we also have this impending government shutdown that's looming. And
You think it's a go on this shutdown?
no, I think that you know, there is the sticking point, and
Where's 99?
Still
Sorry,
at
I thought
99.
what was like.
I know he was going to be very excited. Well, we would have congratulated number 100 on the air, but we'll tweet out to them from at Trump Report ABTV. Yeah, that's right. So I don't know. I mean, I feel like it's always a very real possibility when they do it, because there are a lot of people who are just like, well, you know.
Well, I thought people now were pretty sure it wasn't going to happen because
Yeah.
the wall funding has
Well,
been
and that's what I
removed.
was going to talk about is,
there-
you know, there was a
and-
lot of talk that President Trump was going to insist on not even funding the wall. It was more of like, well, we're going to put a down payment on the wall, and it's really
We're
just a
financing
loan
this
to
wall.
Mexico because they're going to pay for it. And what he did say today was, you know, people were kind of celebrating that they backed down on the wall a little bit. He's like, folks, the wall is going to happen. There's still a lot of time left in the first term. Remember, it's only 100 days. That's a little bit more than 3 months. There are going to be plenty of people, maybe some at this desk, who feel like it's been a lot longer than 100 days.
You don't
But-
think it's been longer? Feels like it's been longer
I
than
mean,
100 days?
I have a 1.5-year-old son. I have no idea how long. You know, time is fleeting as far as I'm concerned. I have very limited concept. If you told me the inauguration was yesterday, I would probably believe you. If you told me that the next election was tomorrow, I would also believe you.
Wow.
Okay.
So
Is
yeah,
this what sleep deprivation does to you?
I think so, Scott. I think so. Now, so yeah, I think that, you know, that will probably make it easier to get the deal done. And, you know, obviously everybody's going to blame the other side if the shutdown happens. But it's probably, I mean, I think Democrats are going to blame
It's
Trump
really
and-
it's the Republicans' fault, though. I mean, that's the
Sure.
that's the thing, because that's what happened, and they realized that's what happened when they had the shutdown a couple of years ago with President Obama. They got the blame, and now they will completely get the blame because there is nobody else that has power except the Republicans. So, you know, Trump did kind of walk back those comments about shutting down the government over the wall, which he was so defiant about a couple days ago, of course, changing his opinion again.
Well, it just means Ivanka
but-
explained it to him. You know, that it was like, that's not the issue to shut down the government over.
Yeah, it really isn't, and it would look really bad on them if they were to go through with that. And, you know, his negotiating tactics that he says he has are horrible, because he was trying to say, well, we won't fund Obamacare to try to make the Democrats come to the table. I'm like, well, you're basically hurting your own supporters and people with health care so you can get your own ego wall. So it really doesn't pay off for him, and Democrats shouldn't be coming to the table for that. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, I could certainly understand why they wouldn't feel, I don't know. I don't think either side wants to feel bullied on this. And I think that they're going to avert the shutdown, but I always feel like there's the sort of half-assed, middle-of-the-road compromise where it's like, let's do some funding for a couple months.
Right, that's what they're going to do.
5-day extension.
Right, they're going to
Yeah.
kick it down for a couple months
Yeah.
again, and which they always do, so that's the easiest decision, and then they can come back to it in a couple months. But
Yeah.
Those negotiating tactics are that bullying is just not going to work long term. To try to say he's not going to fund Obamacare to the Democrats to make them come to terms on this wall.
So I think it'll be avoided. Chelsea, do you feel like we will avert the government shutdown, or do you think it's even money that it still happens?
For some reason, up until like 30 seconds ago, I was pretty confident that there was not going to be a shutdown. But it's just too much of a shit show, and anything can happen.
And usually does.
True.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Scott, do you think not going to happen?
I don't
you
think
think
so either.
the kick the can down the road. by a
Yeah,
week
that's
or
what they're
two.
going to
Yeah.
do. I think at least for a couple months, I think the political repercussions for them are already so great that if they put this in the mix too, it's not going to be good
I mean,
for them.
for the 100th day to be like exclamation pointed by a government shutdown is probably not going to play too well. So
No.
that's, okay, I'm back to like 99% thinking it's not going to happen.
But there's always that 1%.
That's
no,
right.
I agree with you though. I
true.
think that
There is
the,
always
the
that
timing
1%.
coinciding with day 99, just like we have 99 followers. Go figure. That I think that nobody in the Trump White House is like, this is not a good thing to have coincide with us touting our accomplishments. So, speaking of the accomplishments, as we reflect on the past 100 days, Chelsea, we tried to do this a little bit last week. Do you have any? You actually sent me a message of something. I don't know if you remember what you sent to me.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, I think it was a text actually, so I'll have to look for it. But
Was that before wine or after wine?
no, it was actually not something that you were particularly happy with. It was. But Scott, why don't I start with you while I try and find this message?
You did this last week, and it put me on the spot because I have nothing that I can say that I feel is positive except the fact that
think
we
it's
haven't
an
been blown
email.
up yet.
Yeah,
Or gone to nuclear war. That's about the only thing I can say that's positive because honestly, I find the entire time that he's been president to be quite disastrous.
Wait, didn't last week you say that you were excited about Betsy DeVos? Oh, I'm sorry, that was our guest. My apologies. I did not mean to.
I mean, honestly, I really can't. Maybe that he picked Mattis for defense secretary, and I mean, I'm really stretching because I
I know
don't
what it
see
was.
anything on there that he has done that I'm impressed with or find that has a actual decently run administration.
Did you find it, Chelsea? 'Cause an Egyptian-American charity worker who was imprisoned in Cairo for 3 years and became the global face of Egypt's brutal crackdown on civil society returned home to the United States late Thursday, I believe that was last week, after the Trump administration quietly negotiated her release.
Yep, this is from the Washington Post.
So,
yeah.
so you're like,
So look at me.
trust it.
I am trying to look at all the information out there.
And you sent it to me on like your off time. You didn't send it to me like right before the show, and that's why I had to search for it because I kind of forgot.
See, but
that I
those
had
are the
it.
things then that should be mentioned. I am saying like the problem with him too is that he focuses on the wrong things.
Why do you think this was like quietly?
Right.
Well, the negotiations I think should be
That part
quiet.
is.
Right, but
But
at the end,
story-
afterwards,
but-
when this happens, that should be something that he should
Play up.
Right, because what he does is he focuses on the wrong things.
I believe it's because the media is too busy with fake news that they don't have time to talk about something like this that's real news. Speaking of the media and things,
Well, it was in the Washington Post.
Yes, it was in the Washington Post, but to the point that it wasn't shouted from the mountaintops. It was not something that we heard.
You heard it here.
We heard you heard it here first, gang. Here on the Trump Report. Now, there was a story that I think is getting very much underreported, and the media is kind of staying away from. This was from Politico. It was a very well-researched story. Their investigative reporter, Josh Meyer, had a piece that, according to this, is 7,300 words, showing that President Obama secretly released 21 Iranian prisoners, not the 7 originally claimed, men who were deeply involved in Iran's missile and nuclear program. And it basically was not covered by the networks. And I think that it's interesting because it was the same day, this story was broken the same day that everybody was excited that Obama, made a public appearance. He was speaking in Chicago. So they were fawning all over the fact that he's on the stage and not talking about this. And, look, I think that when you're making deals like this with Iran, there's going to be a lot of things that don't make you happy.
I did read
if our friend Steven was here, he would talk about the truck
right.
full of cash.
Exactly.
Which may or may not have happened. I think that some people would say did not. But if Steven were here, he would say, I believe it happened. And the cash was Clinton cash. No, he wouldn't say that.
No, actually, I saw the article when I was trolling Kellyanne Conway on Twitter, and
Which you do a lot.
I do.
I should start retweeting your trolling.
I
of
really
Kellyanne
do.
Conway.
Kellyanne and Mitch McConnell are my favorites, and now Trump actually, because some of his stupid ones are just too much to let go. And I did read it, and yeah, I think I get it. It doesn't come across well, but I think there are certain things that happened with Iran that are different than maybe even with Trump, with releasing the captive in Egypt. But it is a very fine line, I think, when you're dealing with these negotiations. I'd like to know more about what happened with those 21 prisoners that were released in Iran, and know a little bit more of their backstories and everything, because it was a long article, and I at some point just kind of skimmed through it because it wasn't quite...
You had people to troll.
I did.
And there was only so much reading you could do.
Yes, exactly, because I had to get back to it.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I think that I just wanted to call attention to the fact that that's a story that I think requires some more explanation and maybe sharing it with people instead of, oh my God, remember Obama? He was so great. It was basically like so many of the media outlets turned into a stand-up routine by Dane Cook. Hey, remember Transformers? They made noises. And basically they're just like, look, Obama, he speaks. That's not the guy we have now. And then they all just dazed off, like off in the distance, thinking, what if we could still have Obama? When can Sasha and Malia...
I thought that when I heard him speak.
But you're not a news anchor. You're busy trolling.
I know, but I thought about it. I was like, oh, this is so nice.
I thought, actually, I was a little bit disappointed by what he said. Actually, not what he said exactly, but how he said it. I thought, come on, let's just get really real and not be
I agree with that.
so
It was
contrived
so
controlled
yeah.
and exact and precise with his words, and just kind of let it hang a little. No such luck.
No.
In reading about that Obama event, though, I think there was a great Boston Globe article that said that it's very clear that he's going to move on. He didn't mention President Trump by name, which I think people feel like he could be a powerful voice. But his predecessor didn't do anything like this.
Well,
and I think he just feels like that's not his place.
It's really not, because that is something different. I mean, when Trump brought up with President Obama wiretapping him, that was something that had never been done before. Because usually there is a presidential club. You leave your predecessors out
alone.
of things, and same thing.
And you try
successors,
and not criticize the new guy right away.
You leave the successor alone because now it's their turn to make the decision. So I think what Obama did was the right thing to do, and not...
Yeah, he had to issue a statement about the wiretapping, but he's not criticizing policies and whatnot. And I think that's...
I think they speak for themselves anyway. So.
Yeah, well, that might be part of it. And look, I think that there would be a moment that he would feel like, okay, I got to say something on this, but he just hasn't gotten there yet. But the idea is that President Obama has moved on. This was the Boston Globe article. And, the Democrats should move on, too. I've said this many times on the show. They should definitely be planning...
What do you mean by move on?
Okay, .org. No, I actually don't mean that, but I just thought it was funny in my head. I think that they need to really be planning for the midterms.
No, I agree.
Planning for
and finding
2020.
fresh talent.
Instead of, oh, yeah, but he's not a legitimate president because of Russia. And you have people that are working on that. There's hearings, there's things.
A couple of people. I was seeing that the number of people that they have investigating the Russia connection is like a fraction of the people that were investigating Benghazi.
Right. Well, great. That's what they should be doing.
So I think that we do need some people who won't let up
I'm not saying ignore it, but I just feel
we
like
need to be on that,
we hear about it so often, and it's worked into so much rhetoric and things, and it's just like, why don't you just focus on the other things?
No, but I think there needs to be a focus on that, and then we need to focus on fresh talent for 18 and the midterms, and we have a ton of races in 18 that are in really shape 20.
Fresh talent. Oh my gosh, when people are, this is a little driving me bananas. When it's okay. Yes, we do need good candidates.
Right, we need good candidates. We don't need to look on the retreads.
It's for me, just focusing on the candidates is like reshuffling the seats on the deck of the Titanic. It's not the candidates. It's the system
it's the
within
system,
that they
right?
work
And the messaging
that doesn't allow us to get stuff done
Right.
the way that the majority of Americans want things to get done. So yes, good candidates, but
We need
so
good
much
candidates.
more
Right.
on the system as a whole and why it's not working.
But
Right.
to Scott's
but we
point-
need good candidates to be able to bring the message, to be able to be elected, to be able to make those changes. And that's the problem.
Then this goes to, did you guys see the Chris Hayes interview with Tom Perez and Bernie Sanders?
I did not see
No,
that.
I did not. I
Oh
heard
my
about
gosh.
it. I know.
Okay, so on this unity tour that Bernie was
I know,
told
that's
us that he was heading out on the road
Yeah.
with Tom Perez. I was like, "Woo, that's going to be fun." And oh my god, has it been fun. So Chris Hayes interviewed them. They were side by side. This is the interview where Chris Hayes asked Bernie, "Are you a Democrat?" And he said, "No, I'm an independent."
Right.
And then asked Tom Perez, "Do you believe in single payer?" And Tom Perez waffled, and I believe that healthcare is a right. And I mean, just like very political speak. And you could just very clearly see the divide. At one point, Tom Perez looked like he was about to throw up out of the side of his mouth, and Bernie made a face like he's trying to hold it together, and was just like, ugh, and these men represent very different factions.
Right.
Of I would say the Democratic Party.
I would say maybe the progressive
and
wing.
I like that this problem is sort of coming to a head right now, because hopefully then we can address it. If what happened, I think, on the Republican side is that they all banded together as a party of no, and there wasn't an actual message. So when they did get into power, they couldn't pass like a new health care law because there wasn't something that they were all together for. And so I think if the cracks in the relationship between the moderate and the progressive wing of the Democratic Party are being dealt with now, then we will have a much stronger chance, stronger message. Things will go better if we get this handled now. I encourage you all to watch it. And I want us to poke and prod at them until we force some
Well, I
meeting
think
of the
to your
minds.
point, the key for Democrats, but also for the Republican Party, is to have stronger candidates who inspire people. Because the reason that Trump emerged was, when you think of that pool, how many people were there? 12, 13? No one, there was, obviously it was Jeb Bush's turn until people actually heard him speak, and it was like, no, it's not. So the last 3 presidential elections we've had have featured people who it wasn't their turn. It was not Barack Obama's turn. He stole Hillary's turn. And that is actually, I think, was much better for the party than having given Hillary her turn in 2008, because there was this huge turnout, this excitement. And while people might not feel that it's good for the country that there was this excitement about Trump, people continue to not be excited for Hillary Clinton. So you have to stop trotting out the same people.
Well, that's what we're saying. Like, not the retreads. That's what I meant by the fresh people to message out and hopefully get people.
And that's the key. And I think
excited.
Republicans
But
need
what
to line up
message?
these next people too, because obviously Trump will run for re-election. But
Well,
let
if
me,
he's still around.
Sure. But let me tell you who's not going to be the young, fresh,
and if he
exciting.
thinks he can win too, actually, I don't think
If
he will run.
If he thinks
if
he won't
win, he will back out and he will blame everyone else.
He will definitely LBJ, which I guess
Yeah.
I probably shouldn't use the abbreviation
No, but that's-
BJ around
yeah.
Trump. But he would definitely pull a Lyndon Baines Johnson.
would.
And if he is convinced he couldn't win, he's like, nope, I'm not
Right,
gonna
he
do
will
it.
be out.
He'll let
and then-
Schwarzenegger run for
he
him.
will let Pence run and lose, and then blame everyone else and say,
well, that's
"Look,
what I
if
was
it
going to
wasn't for
say.
you,
Is
I would have won again, but I walked away."
the young, fresh
you deserve.
face of the Republican Party, whether it's in 4 or 8, whatever years, should not be Mike Pence. It should be, someone who's actually young and fresh and doesn't call their wife mother.
But you're right, Chelsea.
I know
about
that bothers
but you're
you,
right
that's why I
about the
mentioned
messaging, though. Is the party really does need to find its messaging, because there was a poll the other day that said even with all the Republican troubles right now, even Democrats are having a hard time being like that. The party is standing for what its principles are for the people and for the workers and for that kind of thing. And that's the problem, is we have to figure what that is, because even with all the crap going on with the Republicans, that should be a shoo-in for Democrats to take advantage of that. Even people from our own party are not totally on board with the message.
This was another beautiful moment. I mean, beautiful in a cringeworthy fashion, of that Chris Hayes interview. Chris Hayes asked both of them, Tom Perez and Bernie Sanders, do you think we need to name or somebody to blame? Trump has blamed immigrants, Muslim, whatever, for our problems. Bernie has pointed the finger at the ruling class, the billionaire class, and asked Tom Perez, do we need to point fingers at somebody?
Well, there you go. See,
Not really.
So there's our homework. We should watch this interview.
And that's
because
right
we
there
always
the
run out of
problem.
time. I wanted to move on to something else that's actually tied into this. I saw an interesting clip earlier in the week, and it was how George Stephanopoulos could not believe that the latest polling showed if the election were held today, Trump would still win. And I think that that's a very common feeling that a lot of people find it hard to believe. I do think that those are people who still don't understand what happened in November. That, yeah, if you're not replacing Hillary with someone else, if you're putting the two of them on the ticket again, of course he's still going to win. Because everyone who says, oh my God, but everything he's done has been terrible, what he's done in these 100 days is keep enough promises for the base that they're happy and they're like, okay, he's going to get to the other things. They're getting the wall dangled, as a little carrot on a stick. I think he's keeping the people happy that he needs to, and they feel like, yeah, I'm going to vote for him again.
Well, I was a little surprised because of how many people were about to lose health care.
But they haven't lost it. I think if they did lose it, that might be a different story.
I don't know. I think it's really, really hard because it's such a theoretical. If the election were held today, knowing what we know now, I'm not sure.
Well, then more people would show up.
Yeah, that's what
one
I'm
way or
wondering.
the other. And he could still win, but more people would show up.
I don't know, but I think maybe more people may show up on the other side of the that sat out, that were too like, whatever. I'm not a big Hillary fan, so I'm going to sit out. There's no way he's going to win. If they knew what we know now, I think a lot of those people would have come out to vote, and it might change things, especially in those. It was only 80,000 votes difference when you really go across those 3 states that would have tipped the entire election, or one state like Florida tipping the other direction. So I have a hard time believing that, and it's such a theoretical thing.
Right? No, it's theoretical.
It's the same thing of saying if Bernie was running, would he have won Wisconsin?
Yes,
But again, that's theoretical. We don't know that, and we're just putting a theory in there because he won Michigan against Hillary. Would he have won those upper Midwest states? It's hard to say now after the fact, and it's the same thing here. We're just going to say. But it's that same thing. We'll never know.
We'll never know.
Go back and forth and talk about it.
I find it much easier to believe that Trump would win than the fact that a major broadcast network has as kind of their star news personality someone who was literally a mouthpiece for the Clinton administration. And there he is, George Stephanopoulos. And it's just amazing that, that's who he is. So maybe that's a little hope for Sean Spicer. One day, maybe he'll get to host Good Morning America.
Maybe he won't have to be the Easter Bunny when
I want to move on, mostly because I want to make sure we get to play a song that I asked our friend Neil in the booth to pull, because we did have the Science March over the weekend. Oh, thank you. Really, we could end right now, but we have a couple more minutes. And we did have the Science March, which the idea was, it was Earth Day. It was, hey, climate change is real and all this. And I think that this was a good one. This was one that made sense. But I'm pretty sure that there was a march the week before about his tax returns. And I think there's another one this weekend. So, again, it's enough with the marches?
Nope. Keep marching.
I agree.
Whatever
I don't know if it helps you.
out, whatever keeps people engaged and standing for something, bring it on out.
Absolutely. And that's their right to do that, and I agree.
No, it's their right if they want to keep going. But I think that, it definitely
and some of the
marginalizes
signs were
them.
hilarious.
They were really good signs. Yeah, if I wasn't so lazy, I would have pulled a few that I saw. But
I can't believe I'm marching for facts.
Right, exactly. And I know this one wasn't supposed to be as political, and supposedly there are other people that are, scientists do tend to be more on the liberal spectrum, but this technically wasn't against Trump.
Right.
Per se,
it was just it was more pro-science.
Earth Day, because I have a lot of friends on the science side of things, and like weather and atmospheric sciences and everything that went out, and not everybody is a card-carrying Democrat or progressive, and so I think it is important, and I think like Chelsea's saying, if this keeps people engaged, they should do something. I get the March fatigue for some people. It's like, okay, every weekend for people that are
people that aren't actually going,
people's only form of exercise. So
that's true too.
Encourage this.
Yes. So I get that for the progressive side, like, okay, which march am I going to be a part of? Because it's like every weekend there's something. But I do think it's incredibly important, and I think it keeps the pressure. And I think people keeping the pressure on, even just like the stupid thing with the Mar-a-Lago on the website there was taken down because people are speaking out and making calls and doing emails and marching and protesting, and that keeps the pressure on these people. You know, that's the whole thing with the town halls.
People are showing up at the town halls.
People are showing up at the town halls,
Yes,
and that's
now see,
important.
I find that to be a lot more effective. And look, if
Yeah.
both things are happening, great.
I think-
I just don't want people to think like, oh, I marched on Saturday. I don't need to go to sit through that town hall.
Well, no,
I think it's great to go to the town
the
halls
difference
and
is
speak.
those people still need to get out and vote.
Yes.
Bottom line, it's great these people are going out and being energized, but at the end of the day, they need to get out and vote. They need to be the ones voting in like these midterm elections in June in the 6th district of Georgia.
Not
you know, these type of things. These people need to actually go out.
Yeah,
and do
and
these
not
things.
to dwell on show business, but because we're here in Hollywood, you know, there was a vote by the Writers Guild to authorize a strike. They had 65% voter turnout, which just imagine if we got 65% voter turnout in a presidential election. They might not go the way people want them to. We might have gotten the same results. But whenever you hear that it's like, oh, 51%, well, that was great.
Right.
And just, you know, obviously this is a very single issue kind of vote. It's a small sample set. These are probably all people who actually vote. Probably a lot of them voted for Hillary. But, you know, the idea, and you hear about an election, you're just like, yeah, people should be that engaged and that involved. And so to Chelsea's point, yes, if they march and then they also continue to march to the town hall meetings
Right.
and then
And then
march
march
into
to
the
the
election
polls.
booth, then great. I'm all for it. But I just wonder if people are going to kind of flame out by the time the summer happens and then it's fall and it's like, well, you know, Halloween and, oh, was there an election? Whoops. So, you know, and I mean, that's more, there'll be local things to vote for in November. These aren't the midterms.
I
but-
really do think this is going to change the corner. I mean, it was sort of like the stuff with Pat McCrory in North Carolina, and it was pressure they put on every single week throughout his entire term in North Carolina, and it was a long game, but it was successful at the end. They ended up getting him out of office. So I do think these are long-term things, and I think people know that, and actually your friend Elizabeth Warren had a nice message the other day basically saying that.
Do you call her Liz or Betsy? Which one? Because, I mean, you can sort of shorten that name either way.
I mean, I was in there and like to her office, I called her Elizabeth, and I mean Senator Warren. I mean, you just like even to
don't
call
do that.
her
Don't do that to
Elizabeth.
Barbara Boxer. Make sure you always call senators senator. Yeah. But anyway,
But
sorry.
no, to that point though, I was saying is that she said, you know, this is every day. You know, it's basically you can't just sit back. You've got to be out there and be ready to keep going every day. Like, it's great what we're doing, but we have to keep the energy level up because the midterms are going to be so crucial. And like we have so many state races and governor races with 39 states. There's a lot of big stuff coming up next year, and we have to keep it going. And even these special elections, special election in June again in the 6th district in Georgia. We have governor elections in New Jersey and Virginia this fall, you know, in 2017. So we have things that are coming up that people need to get out there and stay active all the time.
Poor Chris Christie. He's going to have to go back to being a husky jeans model. But unfortunately, we do have to go. And it's always the worst part of the show is when we have to say goodbye. But thanks to everybody who joined us in the chat. Thank you to Scott Moore at SMan80. Thank you to Chelsea Galicia at Chelsea Galicia for sharing her lovely vacation photos.
Absolutely.
And
My
I'm
pleasure.
Christian Bladt at Christian DMZ.
Still
Don't forget,
99.
we're at Trump Report ABTV. Somebody follow us.
I know
get
we're
up to
ready for that 100th.
At Trump Report ABTV. We'll say
Don't
your
be so
name on the air.
desperate, guys.
We'll say no.
I
We're a
want
little
that
desperate.
100th.
I just wanted to be
want
100th.
100th for the 100th days.
Right, exactly. So we'll give you a shout out on the show if you're a 100th follower. Anyway, thanks again to everybody. We'll be back next Tuesday, 7 Pacific. Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Bye.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.